Dive into the pulse of Bills football with Turf to Tape, where veteran sideline reporter Sal Capaccio and film room guru Eric Turner deliver a one-of-a-kind podcast experience, combining Sal's unparalleled access to players and coaches with Eric's razor-sharp film breakdowns. The show bridges the gap between casual fans and hardcore enthusiasts. This is Turf to Tape.
This is Turf to Tape, brought to you by Thin Man Brewery. I'm your host, Eric Turner, and as always, joined by Sal Capaccio, the man that lives at the intersection of access and insight. And Sal, we have a busy show today. We have some news. We got to recap the Bills-Ravens game. What's going on, brother? I heard you were on the golf course today.
I was. So generally the way it works is when the Bills play on a Sunday, their team day off is Tuesday. So that's generally my day off because I cover the team, and you have to be kind of on top of everything they do. So that's their day off. So it's the one time. So until the weather turns, I try to play golf on Tuesdays. You know what I mean? Now it's not every Tuesday because like next week, that's not the case. The Bills play Thursday night football games, so they're not going to be off on Tuesday. But when I get these a day off in a week, I'll try to play golf when I can until the weather turns. I did not play well today, but a bad day golfing is still better than a good day doing a lot of things in life. I'll say that.
Well, while it was your day off and maybe things didn't go as well on the links for you today, well, we're going to put you right to work, Sal. There's some news that, that broke, according to Tom Pelissero, that the Bills have released Robbins, their current punter, and they are going to be signing on Cameron Johnston. Obviously, it doesn't appear to be official yet. These are just reports, but I want to get your thoughts on this Robbins play and where the Bills stand with the punting situation.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this move, and I don't really know why this is just happening. Obviously, we're not down at the facility today. We don't know much about it. Sean McDermott will speak to the media tomorrow before practice, so we'll get maybe a little bit more clarity on what's happening if they do announce it by then officially. Let's remember the Bills have not officially announced anything. This is a report from Tom Pelissero, as you say. I thought, Brad Robbins did a nice job in preseason and in camp, but the thing about a Bills punter is it's mostly about directional punting. You're not really going to be a team that traditionally is going to be with this offense stuck at your 25, 30 yard line, all afternoon. So you want to make sure you have directional kicks. And, I didn't see anything that necessarily was wrong with anything Robbins did. It wasn't like he had a bad game necessarily. You could probably pinpoint a couple of punts. He had a few on Sunday night. He averaged, I think, 38.5 yards net, which isn't a lot. But again, when you're punting closer to midfield, you want to be more directional. He did pin one inside the 20. I do wonder, with a new kicker, does this have anything to do with holding? Does it have anything to do with, Matt Prater and him, what his preference is, as far as what a holder does or anything? I'm just curious here on how this could possibly go, right? I don't really know, but we'll see. There could be a lot of different reasons for it, but the Bills apparently are moving on from Brad Robbins after just one game. So, they're always evaluating everything. And, this is something that they evaluated and said that they want to make a change.
Yeah, it's interesting that they pulled the plug that quickly, and I love your point about the holding and how important that is. And I will say, it's one thing we're going to talk about quickly today is, how well they handled the end of game situation of bringing Prater on as the clock is running and getting him on, snapping, avoiding that block by Kyle Hamilton, and obviously winning that game. But it appears like Cameron Johnston, he only played possibly in one game last year, 2 punts. And had a net of 37.5, 1 punt inside the 20. So that was 2024 stats. I'm not sure if
his last full season was 2023 when he kicked for when he punted for the Houston Texans. He spent a couple of years there, 3 years there. He was in Philadelphia before that. And actually in 2018 and 2019, he was in the top 10 in the league, actually third in the league in 2018, his rookie year in yards per punt, and then 8th in the league in 2019. So, but again, those stats, punting stats are always weird, Eric, because again, every punter and every team is asked to do something different, right? Which is you might be asked to just boom it out of your end because your offense isn't that good. And you got to flip the field. You might be asked to get hang time because you're trying to get your gunners down there and you just want to make sure there's no returns because you're not comfortable with having to go down there and what that looks like with tackling. You might just be asked to directional kick and get things inside the 20. So, I think that could be a reason why.
Yeah, we'll see how that unfolds. Again, it's not official yet, but that was a report according to Tom Pelissero to kick off the show. So with that behind us, let's get into your overall thoughts on this thrilling game between the Bills and the Ravens in week 1. Share with fans what it was like being at that game on the sideline, kind of set up and give us the context of that heavyweight fight that we saw Sunday night.
Well, first of all, this is my 1, 2, 3, fourth or fifth time, I guess, if I go think back, of being on the same field with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And actually, you can go back even before that, because 2018, they both played in that game their rookie year, the opener, right, where the Bills got smoked in that one, and they put, it was the rainy day. And every time it happens, I say, I am so lucky to be able to be on a field to watch these guys.
Yeah, that's pretty
They're
cool.
amazing. They both really are. I mean, Josh Allen, we all know how great he is. Anybody who's, close to the Bills, follows the Bills, knows he's, one of the greatest ever, right? I mean, it's just, I think you could say that at this point with what he's done.
No doubt.
It was Lamar Jackson and all the dynamic things that he can do. I mean, to be able to watch him run, to be able to watch him throw, that throw to DeAndre Hopkins was unbelievable, right?
Yeah, dime.
And just to have that perspective is great. Derrick Henry is such a beast. He really is. He's so big and strong. And when he gets rolling, it's really tough. And obviously the Bills had a tough day. But I think overall, until we get into the nitty gritty here, for me, Eric, I've been involved in so many of these games where I've watched and been on the sidelines for so long and watched football. I really kept thinking to myself, boy, they haven't put the Bills away. And as much as it looked like it just wasn't going to happen, I kept thinking to myself, the Bills just need one play. If they can get one play, they could actually maybe get back into this thing, and we'll see where it goes, because they're letting them hang around. Like the Ravens were letting them hang around, even though they were going blow for blow and 8 points and 16 points, 8 points, 16 points, 8 points, 15 points, whatever. And it was never a 3-score game. It was always a 2-score game. And I kept thinking about just that one play. And then they get that play. That's the fumble, right? That Ed Oliver strips and Terrell Bernard falls on it. And that's when it just felt like, okay, like now you got to go down and score and you could tie this game. Remember, they still they didn't get it. But that's when it really felt like, okay, this is possible. Still unlikely, but oh my goodness. And then when it really happened, you get the ball back. When they were getting the ball back after the 3 and out, I was actually confident, like they're going to go down and score. They're going to go down and they're going to kick the game-winning field goal, because they can. It wasn't a situation where they needed a touchdown. And when it happened, the euphoria, obviously, of being on the sidelines, and I think it kind of all happened so quickly for everybody, though, right? There was such a shock for people who were still there. I know a lot of people left, and I got no time for criticism of those people. I mean, whatever. You know who's criticizing people who are leaving? People didn't go. That's who's
exactly
right. So whatever. I don't have any time for that. What I do have time for is to tell you that if you stayed, though, you were rewarded, because it was an incredible game and it was an incredible ending, and it's one of the top real sporting events I've ever been around, much less even a part of.
That's so interesting to hear, because I know as someone that was watching it from home, it felt like a heavyweight fight. It was like a pay-per-view event. Again, you talked about the players that are on the field, guys that are going to be in the future wearing gold jackets in the Hall of Fame. And I think on paper, most will agree that they have a lot more talent. The Ravens have a lot more talent, and the Bills came out and I thought, yes, it started off a little slow on both sides of the ball overall in like the first quarter, second quarter. And I think the offense was a little clunky at times, a couple 3 and outs. And I think Joe Brady did that purposely to kind of, when it comes to collect intel on the defense and how the game's going to unfold. And it just felt like you said that they hung around, that they were sort of the underdog at home. And then when those opportunities arose, they capitalized on it when we're talking the offense and the defense. And it hung around close enough to make it, an actual great ending to a game that for a lot of it felt like the Bills were never in control of, aside from that, maybe that first drive where they went down and scored. And so it was interesting to see it end that way, when for a lot of the game, it just felt like the Bills have no shot. Even into the fourth quarter, it was still a long shot, but it was still within striking distance, because Josh Allen could still just light it up at any given time.
Yeah. By the way, the Bills have officially made the roster move. They've tweeted it out, and they have officially added Matt Prater to the active roster. He's no longer going to be an elevation. He'll be their kicker on the active roster. And of course, Tyler Bass is out for at least 3 more games. We know that. So Matt Prater is on the active roster to give them 53. Actually, and then because him and Johnson will give them 53 because they've waived Brad Robbins. They only had 52. So what's really funny to me and interesting, and you talk about breaking it down like that. Last year in the playoff game, I think we talked about this. I really felt what the Bills did was they said, we're just going to wait for you to make a mistake. We're going to play a low volume game.
Yes.
We're just going to keep things kind of conservative, close to the vest. We're going to wait for you to make a mistake, and then we're going to capitalize. And they did it, right? I mean, the Ravens had 134 more yards in that game. They dropped passes though. They fumbled the ball, and then the Bills won because they didn't make mistakes.
Points off turnovers.
I think the Bills kind of had the same philosophy in this game. It just
Same.
never happened until there was 7 minutes
Took a little
left.
longer. It took a little longer.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's
And
exactly what happened.
Their game plan. I totally agree with you. They stuck to their
Yes.
game plan, although it was very difficult to watch at times.
Yes.
You saw them run the ball multiple times in a row, and it's difficult to watch, but they stuck to their game plan well into that second half, and they were rewarded in that fourth quarter, especially.
Fans don't want to hear that, right? I get
No,
it. I understand. And part of the issue is you could stick to your game plan, but it got to a point where you had to get out of your game plan with 7 minutes left by throwing the ball down the field, which they didn't do all day. They just started throwing the ball down the field a little bit. It started working out, and people are like, why didn't they do that earlier? Well, the reason why is probably because they felt, we're just going to keep this game as close as possible because they're going to make a mistake.
Yes.
And we're going to capitalize. And it happened in the playoff game. It didn't happen in this game. So by the time it gets to 7 minutes left, which, by the way, did you realize someone pointed this out to me? Pretty cool. The Bills got the ball back with 7:16 on the clock, 7:16, right?
Yeah, that's
to start that drive.
I love it.
And that's really when, it started to happen. And it took too long to get there for a lot of us. I get it, but it happened. And that's kind of what they were banking on. It's not we always say that getting turnovers isn't a strategy. You can't just rely on it happening. But if you can play the kind of game, low volume, where you don't make mistakes and you wait for the other team to make a mistake, eventually it could happen and it could be really in your favor. And I think that's what the Bills banked on. And eventually it did happen. It just took a long time for it to happen as compared to maybe in the playoff game.
100%. That formula has worked recently for them. Protect the ball, do what you can to keep it close. And then those moments, have arose for them over the last couple of years. So let's talk about something that is not really discussed often enough, unless it's a negative connotation, and that's the situational football in regards to the Bills. And you always hear about all the things that they didn't do right and things they did wrong. Well, let's give them some kudos here when we're talking end of half situations. I'm talking about prior to the half, their ability to get that chunk play to start off that drive prior to halftime, and then that special play set up to Kincaid on that deep crosser with the three receivers clearing out to get 1 second, along the boundary, to get 1 second left for that 3 points. And then, of course, as we talked about at the top, at the end of the game, clock's running. They're running the field goal team out there. Again, a new kicker that was just signed on Thursday, for them to execute those situations to get points at the end of the half, but also at the end of the game to win the game. I want to give the coaching staff and the personnel kudos on executing that. It was perfect.
Agreed. One thing you can be mad at the defense and what they gave up and the game plan or anything like that. Something you absolutely can't be mad at because they were great at it was clock management. They did this perfectly. They did it perfectly at the end of the half. They did it perfectly at the end of the game. And one of the reasons why they were able to do it perfectly, they didn't burn timeouts before in either situation. They had all 3 timeouts left when the Ravens got the ball. I'm going to look now. At the 2-minute warning at the end of the first half, the Ravens had the ball at the Bills 32. The Bills still had 3 timeouts remaining. And they said, okay, we can use these now. And sure enough, they did after third down. Yep. And then after and then the Ravens got a first down. They used it again. They used another one after second down. And then they stopped Lamar for no gain. And then they get the field goal. The Bills then have an opportunity because they still had time left on the clock. Now they got the ball back with 31 seconds left. That's not a lot of time.
Right.
Josh Allen to Kincaid. 7 seconds is cutting it close, but that was kind of their only. I thought they were going to throw a Hail Mary the way they were lined up, right? I'm standing there at the goal line watching them, and I thought to myself, boy, if they can sneak a guy in that second level, maybe it can work. But it took a little longer than I thought, so I didn't think that was going to happen. And then suddenly he finds Kincaid, and they get the second put back in the clock, so they get it there. Then you get to the end of the game, and again, perfectly executed, perfectly played on the clock management side to make sure they had those 3 timeouts they used. So they had them when they got the ball back because they used them when Baltimore had the ball. They had to get the 3 and out. They did. And then they go down the field. And what I really liked was they used the time. And then they knew Baltimore would be calling the timeouts. But then remember, the Bills or Baltimore both did not have a timeout when it got to 4th down.
Right.
So the clock had to run. The Bills ran kind of a fire drill, but a lot of time on the fire drill. We saw the Chiefs run that fire drill the other day, and everybody said, oh, my God, they're so well coached. How many teams can do this?
Yes.
Well, it's great, but that's what you work on. You work on it. Every team works on it.
No doubt.
I asked Sean McDermott about it yesterday. He said, we work on those things all the time. They knew how much time they had. They knew they wanted to get set. And what was interesting to me was watching them kind of wait for the clock to get down to like 4 before they snapped it because they had all that time left on the clock. to make sure they're in position. I really like the way they executed the end of the half. I like the way they executed the end of the game. If neither of those two things happen, they don't win this game.
It's amazing. It's amazing how well executed that was. And again, you're talking not just a new kicker, but a new special teams coordinator, one that is well respected, no doubt about it. But he was tested there, and it was just so calm, collected. Even just the guys running off, everything was so cool. It was awesome to see. And again, when we talk about these situations, a lot of the times they're negative. And so I wanted to start off the show to give the staff and the players kudos to that. So one area that the Bills did struggle, of course, we got to get on to the defensive side of the ball, the defensive defense, the run defense. And man, it was rough to watch. 238 yards rushing, 8.2 yards per rush, 7 explosive runs from the Baltimore Ravens against the Bills defense. I want to get your thoughts on what you saw from the sidelines when those big plays hit, especially those plays 15, 20 yards or more. And what did you feel the issues were from that perspective down on the field?
I felt there were too many missed tackles at the line of scrimmage. I felt they gave Derrick Henry a chance to squeeze through some holes. And once he gets to the second level, now all bets are off because he's so big and strong and fast that you have a tough time. And the reason I say that is, Eric, I actually felt that they did a good job of getting him to shuffle his feet once in a while. He wasn't going straight downhill all the time. There were a few times he did, but the key to stopping Derrick Henry is get him to move laterally, get him to move his feet to the right or the left. Don't give him that runway. And they did do that. And and yet here's a crease and he gets through the crease. Once he gets through the crease, you have so much population coming to the line of scrimmage. There's nobody really home now. So maybe Matt Milano's at the line or Terrell Bernard's at the line. Now all of a sudden you're grasping for air because he actually gets through the first wave of defenders and there's nobody home other than the safeties. And I didn't think they played a great game. I didn't think they took good angles. They have to be better than that. One area where I really noticed what the Ravens did, and I asked Bobby Babich about this, and he confirmed what I thought, which I really love because I felt like I was, okay, I got something here and I'm smart. So I watched this. The Ravens are very well coached. And you know what they did? They went up tempo and had quick snaps. So the Bills could not identify their formations quick enough in a very, very loud stadium and communicate. And that is a reason why there were times where Cole Bishop or Taylor Rapp weren't quite in position to be in position, if that makes sense, as the play developed. They couldn't communicate because the Ravens get out of the huddle. They don't even use motion. It's like, we're out of the huddle. You're looking, and what are they doing? You're going to communicate. Oh, there's the snap. Now you're not in position. Loud environment, loud stadium. It's tougher to do. The Ravens kind of used the Bills' crowd noise to their advantage in this case, right?
No doubt.
You never want to make it not loud. Of course, not what I'm saying, but they used it. It's not an excuse, but it is a reason. It's something that Bobby Babich did agree with me when I asked him about it. But you know what he said? He said, we got to be better in our operation. That we got to be better, more buttoned up when those things happen. Those are things the Bills will have to learn and get better at over the next several weeks and over time.
It was such a beautiful wrinkle from Todd Monken, the OC for the Ravens. It was using what the Bills do well of Terrell Bernard setting the defense initially, the safeties, Taylor Rapp setting the coverages prior to snap and using it against them. There were so many quick snaps. There were so many times where they came out of the huddle quickly, got up to the line, and wouldn't allow Terrell Bernard to even set the defense. And again, that affects not just coverages, but also run fits. And so without that stuff happening, you saw at times where Terrell Bernard's still communicating to his, nickel and to his safeties. There were a couple times he's looking back to tell them like what coverage they're running to tie the back end and the front end. And the safeties were out wide rather than, deep. And so they didn't get set for some runs and they were out of position. They got cut in half basically down the middle of the defense. But more importantly, in the pass game, there were some explosives that were surrendered because, again, that communication was not taking place. And then two, the quick snapping by Lamar Jackson kept the disguise of the Bills defense, kept that in its place. Like before a snap happens, the defense is obviously trying to hold that shell to not reveal what coverage they're going to roll into post snap. And so a lot of times you're waiting to the last second to the ball snap to show that stem, that you're actually assignment that you're actually going to do. And Lamar and the offense were like, you know what? We're going to snap it quick. And a lot of times, Sal, this was the kicker. They did it on early downs when the crowd, when the crowd was going nuts at the beginning of a drive, and it would just shut the crowd down. And so that was such a cool wrinkle. And I hope that Bobby Babich learns from this and this defense learns from this because you know damn well it's a copycat league and offenses are going to continue to do that week in and week out.
And listen, the Bills are on the road next week at the Jets. It's not going to be loud when the Jets have the ball, right? Because it's going to be in the Jets stadium. But I'm sure they'll try and do the same thing. They'll go up tempo. They'll try to catch the Bills. Hey, if you're going to communicate with each other, we'll snap it before you can communicate with each other. So it is something they're going to have to get buttoned up. And on top of all of that, you have what coaches have been telling us. Hey, with all the injuries, these guys haven't had as many reps together. So it even complicates it even more with that communication that you don't have quite down.
And I also thought, when it came to the coaching and scheme and game plan by the Ravens and Monken, there were some new formations that kind of caught the defense out of alignment. Some of those heavy I formations, 2 tight ends, even set I formation, but they were still running zone runs out wide. And if you guys don't understand zone runs, like outside zone runs, those runs that Henry broke, a lot of those were outside zone runs. And while they are attacking out wide, they're actually meant to cut back up inside through the teeth of defense. And that's where, when I talked about earlier about the Ravens splitting the defense in half, that's what was happening. The backside of the defense of these runs was getting cut off and sealed, and the front side was getting washed forward, and it just created these big gaps up the middle, these big cutback lanes. And like you said, if the times that they were not able to get, uphill and stop Derrick Henry from getting going, there were many times where he's just hitting full speed before he gets to the line of scrimmage. And it's hard to contain him once he gets going.
The other thing is too, going into the week, I talked a lot about, and people made a big deal about Patrick Ricard and Isaiah Likely being out. And I thought that was a real big, maybe benefit to the Bills.
Yeah.
Turns out the Ravens had some pretty good answers for that, because Bobby Babich even said yesterday, hey, they had different personnel in there than what we're used to. And the Ravens had a good plan for that. And one good lesson to take away from that is, yeah, I mean, injured players, they can hurt you. But if you have time to prepare for the guys who are supposed to step up, you can still come up with a really good plan and maybe get the other team on their heels, or at least not understanding what you want to do because you haven't done that before. And I thought the Ravens did a good job of that. So there's always two sides of it. I always think that you can definitely look at it as a Bills fan. Oh my God, we did this wrong. We did this wrong. We did that wrong. Give some credit to the Ravens too. They did a lot of good things and they're a well-coached team.
You had mentioned the safeties.
Yeah.
And, real quick, I want to hear your thoughts on, their play. And also, are they going to stick with the same guys? How short is that leash when it comes to Cole Bishop? Because I will admit, while this team, the Ravens offense, is different, they're very difficult to game plan against as a defense. And obviously, they have a Hall of Fame, running back to Derrick Henry who can do a little bit of everything, but they also have a guy that can, attack the perimeter in Lamar Jackson. And it's assignment football when you play this Ravens offense. And at times, the safeties weren't on top of their game, especially if we're talking the run fits. But you saw that lack of speed, that lack of quickness on the back end at times, and a lot of these run fits and missed tackles. Where do the Bills go for the safety position? Where do they go from here going forward?
Well, I think they stay with what they have right now because they're going to keep working with what they have. I think the Bills' philosophy here is, sure, there's some things that we can improve on and we need to get better. But I also think that there's a big point to be made about putting new people in there, and especially if we go outside the organization and onboarding people. I mean, you want to talk about not having time on task. If you put somebody in there right now who hasn't played in this organization, doesn't know the system, you could be well back behind anything Cole Bishop or Taylor Rapp has done so far. I think they have a vested interest in these guys getting better, and they're not going to face the Ravens every week, right? I mean, we know that. They're not facing the Baltimore Ravens every week. You hope that over the next several weeks, they're teams that are a little bit different than the Ravens, and you get a lot more reps under you to get better at what you do and continue on. Now, if people want to go out there and sign Jabril Peppers, I'm all for it. I would tell you, though, I do think Jabril Peppers is a very interesting guy because he's kind of a tweener.
He signed with the Steelers today, actually.
Oh, I didn't see that. Did he really?
Yeah,
I've been golfing today.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. But
I didn't know that.
To your point, again, even if they go ahead and sign someone like that or trade for someone, it's not going to be immediate. Those returns are not going to be immediate with how much they put on these safeties plates. And again, it's going to take time, right? And so it was rough. It was rough at times to see some of the angles, the lack of athleticism. But I'm with you. There aren't many teams that can replicate and bring to the table what the Ravens do. They're a terrible matchup for the Bills, right? They're the worst.
Eric, it's so funny. I was golfing today, actually, Sneaky Joe on the morning show. We were golfing today talking about this. It's the same thing. We had the exact same conversation, which is, it's so funny. The Bills' worst matchup really is the Ravens. The Bills match up way better against Kansas City than they do against Baltimore, right? Matchup wise, player for player, scheme for scheme, what each team wants to do. If you said to most Bills, I'll ask the chat box right now. Hey, hi chat box, what's up? If you could play right now, if I could give you a choice to play in the playoffs right now, the Ravens or the Chiefs, who are you choosing? I bet you most of you are choosing the Chiefs, right? I mean, it's just the matchup is so tough. It's so weird because that's just the way sports are. Every team is built a little bit different. You can't build every team the same. One thing about the Ravens and what they do, obviously, with Lamar and having that dynamic ability, to be able to, run the option. I thought Joey Bosa played well, but I didn't think he played the option well.
Okay.
I thought he crashed a little bit too much. I thought he gave up outside contain too much. Now, that said, Eric, I don't know what he's being asked to do by his coaching staff.
Right.
He may be asked to just crash and then have the safety come over the top. There's different ways to play that particular play.
100%.
But I thought a couple times Joey Bosa could have stayed home and maybe forced Lamar slow played a little bit for him, right? So everybody's got a hand in this when you do it, but it's so hard to ask people to do that, to understand, like, oh, there goes Derrick Henry. I better go stop him. Oh, it's not Derrick Henry. It's Lamar Jackson. What do I do now? Right. Well, what if Lamar Jackson does hand it to Derrick Henry? I need to be there. I need to stop him. Right. So I think that all of that plays a role in it. And then the Ravens, I don't know if you wanted to talk about this, but I could just say it. I think that what they did, if I'm in Baltimore and I'm talking about the Ravens, like, people in Baltimore are mad, right? They're going to look at the Baltimore side of things. Why did they run strict I formation a few of those plays near the end of the game instead of just doing what they've been doing, get Lamar an ability to put the ball in his hands? And they run I formation. They don't run a lot of play action, and they don't run a lot of option. They don't do that. Right.
Right.
And they could have boot, I guess, but the Bills put 10 guys near the line and said, okay, well, Derrick Henry's getting the ball. And that's when you saw the strip. So, for their piece of it, they probably could have handled things a lot better in the last few minutes.
Yes, I will agree. They did not handle it at the end of the game that well. I think it was at the 3-minute mark, Lamar Jackson started off a drive with a big run, a designed run. And I'm like, well, that's it, because they could have done that all night and probably gotten a lot more chunk plays. I will admit, I think Joey Bosa early on kind of gave into some of those read option plays, but I do think he recovered well. And also he created havoc. I mean, I think about he gave up one explosive on that zone read early in the game, but later he blew one up, created a tackle for loss for him and Ed Oliver. And then also, he created that fumble on Justice Hill, which was a big play too. When you're talking about them being in field goal range, that was a big play too. So I think he had an up and down game, but I think he finished strong. I think he rushed the passer very good. One thing we can quickly talk about is how I thought in this game, what the Bills were doing from a pass rush sense. They were using Rousseau and Bosa out wide as power rushers to compress the width of the pocket. And they're saying, okay, we're going to try to hem Lamar Jackson in. The pressure came from the middle, with Ed Oliver and others. They were running more twists inside than I've seen from D tackles in this scheme in many years. Yeah,
I think the Bills tried to play some games up front to confuse the Ravens and give them a different look than they had not seen before, right? Mm-hmm. And I think at times, because what you saw with Lamar and he escapes that third down play. Come on. What do we, that guy, that was special, right? He escapes that third down. Bosa runs into Rousseau as they're trying to make the tackle or whatever it was, but they did some nice things up front. And of course, that Oliver had a great game. He had a monster game. No doubt about that. I like this comment here. Ant says, I hope we don't underwhelm against the Jets being too focused on this Ravens win. Well, first of all, I'll say it two ways. Number one, Ant, one thing that I will always tell you about a Sean McDermott team that I've learned being around them, they're really consistent, right? They don't ride too many highs. They don't dip too many lows. Like, you might get a stinker game every once in a while, but they generally play here. So I wouldn't worry about that. What I actually think is the opposite. I think playing the Ravens is going to help them against the Jets, because the Jets with Justin Fields are going to run a very similar type of offense. Yes. The Bills just saw it this week, and I think that will help them.
I think you're going to see a lot of the zone type runs. You're going to see obviously a mobile quarterback who not only can do it in the run and the pass game and escape things, obviously, as a scrambler. I agree with you. I think when you're looking at what they did last week, the Jets offense, 182 yards, 4.7 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. And when
Breece Hall looked really good. They did a nice job. They're going to want to run the ball again against the Bills.
Totally agree. I actually like that matchup, and I'm with you. I don't think too much will be carried over. They're going to have to see some of the things the Ravens did next week, because again, this is a copycat league, but we'll see how they handle it on the road against New York. So moving on to the other side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball, we talked about at the top, started off a little sluggish, a little slow, but like I said, I think we both agree that that was the game plan. You're playing against a talented defense, a really good secondary that was talked about all week leading into this game, a very hybrid, complex, exotic defense, guys that can play multiple positions all over the field. So Joe Brady in this offense, again, kept it small ball. You saw, to many fans' chagrin, some of those screen passes to wide receivers, tight ends early, couple runs in a row that Josh Allen checked to, and again, giving Josh Allen answers, especially early in the game, while not trying to do too much early, because we know Josh, he was early on, he was juiced up.
Yeah.
He was with that throw to Shakir. He should have made that throw. He was obviously
Agreed.
hyped up a little bit, but he did.
We've seen that before from Josh, by the way, when he gets a little bit too amped up and he overshoots a little bit, right?
Right.
And even if you remember a few years ago, was it the Giants game or the Broncos game at night, and he fired a bullet to Gabe Davis. Like, I mean, it was so hard. Like, he didn't have to. He could just throw it in there, but it went off Gabe's hands and intercepted. Like, that's the way Josh gets early in the game sometimes.
Yeah, first half, the offense, the pass success rate, 41.2%. The rush success rate, 54.5%. 167 total yards, 6 yards per play. It was so early in the first half, and they were lucky to, again, sneak out 3 points prior to half, or this game, it would have felt more lopsided, to be honest. But what were your thoughts on that approach by Brady early in that game?
I thought Joe Brady tried to make sure they gave some easy throws for Josh, and then some complement that with the run. What I didn't like was when they had some short yardage situations, they didn't really try to attack a little bit more, because I think those are the times where you do that. Take a look at the second two series of the game. The second and third series of the game, excuse me. So if I go back and watch, I think it was the second series where Cook takes 9 yards. Right? I'm going to bring up the play-by-play right now so I can look at it, Eric, here. All right, so first quarter, Bills have a great start to the drive, right? They get the ball right at midfield, which is great. And that's when everything's scripted at this point. So you throw it to Dawson Knox, you get a really nice gain. It's 2nd and 8. James Cook gets the first down. Now you're in business. You're already at the Baltimore 39-yard line. Josh Allen runs. We know Josh likes to get hit a little bit to start the game. He's talked about that. So everything's kind of just doing what you're supposed to be doing. You get the ball back after the Ravens score to make it 7-3. This is what I don't like. James Cook goes for 9 yards. Great run.
Yeah,
and then it's Cook for no gain. When that's a 2nd and 1, to me, that's a time for maybe a shot. Be a little aggressive, because you could still go maybe quarterback sneak. I'd like to see that. But I think they wanted to just, hey, not make mistakes. Don't give them an opportunity here. We already got a 2nd and 1. But Cook, no gain. And then on 3rd down, they run again, and Cook goes for -2. Now they got a punt. You come back on the 3rd series, Josh Allen incomplete. Josh Allen to Josh Palmer for 4 yards. Now it's already 3rd and 6, and that's when they go to Dalton Kincaid on that. I think that was the screen pass, right? And and Dalton Kincaid fumbles it forward. So I did not like those two particular drives, but what I really like was, as the game went on, they started to really be a little bit more aggressive in some of the run concepts. And then, of course, they started to let Josh Allen throw the ball downfield, partly because they had to. And that's when they said, okay, like, now time is of the essence. And that's when they started to move things in. I like the fact they used Jackson Hawes as a third tight end. And obviously that proved really valuable later in the game when he's on the field. And you probably think he's going to be a blocker, but he winds up going down the seam. I talked to him about that play, Eric, and he said they run that concept a lot. And if you watch it, it's him down the seam, and it's Dawson Knox on a little out and up. Yep. He said during practices, the corner would generally go with Dawson. So they figured that, that's what the Ravens would probably do. Corner's kind of caught in between. He gets inside leverage on him. Great route. Give the kid credit. That was a really good route. I mean, he stays on the inside leverage of the, I think it was a safety there, might've been the corner, but whoever was there, and he stays right down the numbers. Josh is able to throw it to him, put it on his numbers. He catches the ball. I really like that. They didn't use Alec Anderson that much. But I will tell you that Joe Brady did say that wasn't the plan. They wanted to use Alec Anderson a little bit more, but due to circumstances and getting into 13 personnel, and then at a little bit more often than they wanted to early in the game, that's why that didn't happen. But Keon Coleman led receivers 88% of the snaps.
That's awesome. And I want to rewind just a little bit back to those 3-and-out drives. I'm with you. I think that 2nd and 1 that I'm showing right here on the screen, at that 2:46 mark, that would have been a good time to call a shot play. I know their secondary is very good, but you got to take those opportunities when they're there. And the worst part about this is the next play, they run tempo, they go no huddle, get up to the line of scrimmage, run essentially the same play, and it gets blown up. And that was actually, I think that was a Josh Allen call. I think that was on him to get up there, and he felt like he could get a good look again. And then the next drive, you talked about it, that screen to Kincaid was an actual check built in, or actually, I think it was I think Joe Brady said it's 2 plays given. He checked to this because he was probably expecting pressure. Again, having those pressure valve plays has always been in the Bills offense when you're talking about those wide receiver screens of Shakir or even Kincaid. And you even saw one thrown to Coleman to try to get him going. And so I think in many ways, the Ravens did a great job early in this game at playing that chess match with Josh Allen and making him think, hey, we're bringing pressure, but we're actually dropping out. Hey, we're playing man coverage, but we're actually dropping out.
Listen, I mean, this goes back to what I said earlier. And I try to just make sure and implore this on people. Don't just focus on your own team. Understand there's another team with a lot of professionals who are really good at their job, really well coached. The Ravens have 5 first-round picks in their secondary. They're very well coached. They're going to do things that are going to make it tough on you, and you have to give them credit sometimes. And you should give them a lot of credit in this game for how they were able to do that early in the game. When the chips were down, though, Josh made the right calls. He made the right reads. He made the right throws, right? And we know that. And you could say, hey, you have 5 first-round picks, and we still did that to you in the fourth quarter. You could do that. But, I mean, yeah, they did a nice job there on the back end. I did not like Joe Brady's 2-point conversion play calls, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I thought that they were a little too cute early and then a little too simplistic on the
both at different ends of the spectrum.
on the Keon fade, right? The back shoulder. Although it was a good throw, and maybe you can make the argument he was tugged on, he would have made the catch. I get it. I didn't love the play calls. I understood the reasoning for going for 2 on all of them. Very interesting debate, though. I talked with Sean about that, with the analytics of being down 15 and when you go for 2, and that one or the next one if you get it. And I think you can go either way, but the trend is now to do it first. But I didn't love the 2-point plays, though.
That's fair. I'm with you. And I honestly wonder how many actual 2-point plays they insert into a game plan, because they obviously
How many can you think of you're going to use in a game?
Yeah, exactly. You kind of just lean on some of your go-to base concepts, I'm sure, but I mean, I'm not sure how many coaches actually bring into a game. We're going to get to Keon Coleman, but I do like the fact that they not just Brady, but Josh Allen showed the trust in Keon Coleman to throw that 50-50 and that fade ball. But again, that's something we'll talk about later. But since we're on the subject of Josh Allen, he, for me, was our tapped-in player presented by Thin Man Brewery. He was our player of the game, in my opinion. Finished with 46 attempts, 33 completions, 394 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, sacked only 1 time, pitched in 14 rushes and 2 touchdowns there. He was a monster, especially if you're talking the second half. But it's interesting. Again, we talked about the game plan in the first half and how it was kind of a slog early. He was patient. He was poised. He showed that composure, took some of the underneath passes early in the game. And then when plays were dead, there was really nothing there. The scheme wasn't there. The play wasn't there. You saw him extend plays and make some awesome scrambles, extend plays on the throw to Coleman along the left boundary, Shakir prior to half, obviously. And then when they're backed up and he squirted up into the pocket, out the left side, a little shovel pass to Shakir. He did a little bit of everything, but more so, I was just impressed with how composed he was in that environment against this team when they were down several possessions.
For sure. I know you're talking about Josh. Are you talking about Keon's composure or Josh's composure?
Josh's
composure, for sure. I think that we've all learned now that there's almost nothing that he's afraid of or can't do, right? We know that. And it seems like he takes another step all the time. And in this particular situation, to be able to throw for 251 yards in the fourth quarter. I mean, I read today that that's the most yards of any player in the fourth quarter since Boomer Esiason in 1996.
Goodness. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Wild.
269 total yards in the fourth quarter. He was in complete control of what he wanted to do. And that throw to Josh Palmer was incredible. I mean, it was incredible. It reminded me of that throw against San Fran on Monday night in Arizona a few years ago, just over the linebackers' hands.
Over Fred Warner's
what a
hands.
What a real nice route by Palmer, too. I mean,
Yeah,
Palmer
it was
has
beautiful.
to run that route.
They actually ran it, that play earlier in the game. They ran it. And I think it was early in the fourth quarter, they ran that same route where Dalton Kincaid runs an out route after motioning, and Palmer runs like a corner or deeper out. And then when they completed it to Palmer, it was actually Dawson Knox running the out, and he was open. But this time, Palmer avoided the disruption by the DB. The DB was going over the top to go get Dawson Knox, and he ran to the corner, and then just the layered throw from Josh Allen, the pace on that throw, the trajectory. Palmer with a great route, manipulating his stride, and really just undressing Jair Alexander, in this game. And I thought Alexander, he looked cooked in this game.
Yeah.
He looked rough.
Yes, he did. And what's funny is, so after the game, I actually talked to Josh for a minute or two about that play. And, he said what he saw, and he mentioned, I saw Jair Alexander out there, and I'm thinking, like, is that something? I didn't ask him this. He didn't say this, but I'm thinking, is that something he specifically targeted him? You know what I mean? Because it was him.
Right.
And he felt the same thing you said, but he did mention that he knew it was him on the covering Josh Palmer. And that's interesting to me to think about that. Did you see Palmer's reaction after he caught it in the play and how excited he was, right?
Yeah.
I almost got the sense of, he's like, oh my God, I can't believe that throw. Like, he was even in the moment thinking that.
Yeah. Rightfully so. That to make that kind of throw in that moment, it just showed how well Josh was seeing the field, his field vision. Again, the Bills, I said on social today, Joe Brady called the hits. He called the same plays, same 4 or 5 pass plays several times. And if you go back and watch the All-22, Josh would start his eyes in different places. He would throw it to different guys. That everybody East mentality started to pick up in that second half. And again, those 2 plays, one to Dalton Kincaid is the same play, and then to hit Palmer deep when they needed that chunk play to swing the field. But to throw it with that type of precision was just filthy. It was awesome stuff from him, and that's why we made Josh Allen our tapped in player of the game, presented by Thin Man Brewery. And if you guys haven't heard, Thin Man Brewery is obviously our sponsor for this year on this show, and they have some big things going with their Pils Mafia Light. It's the next big thing from Thin Man Brewery. It's a fan favorite that accompanies Pils Mafia. It hits different though. It's 3.5% ABV, only 80 calories per 12-ounce can. Drinks like water with notes of beer. It's the first craft Pilsner of its kind, brewed and packaged in Western New York, a true game changer for local beer lovers. So when you guys go out to the store, when you guys are tailgating, pick up some of this stuff from Thin Man Brewery. It's a special thing that they've come to help us out with this show and partner with us for this season. We're super excited, and I'm sure, Sal, that our guy Josh Allen is going to be the tapped in player a few more times this year, right?
Hey, if we could choose another guy, I'd choose Ed Oliver for sure. He was amazing. Yeah. He had 6. Not only total tackles, 6 solo tackles for a D lineman. When have you ever seen that? That's pretty crazy, right? 6 solo tackles. He had the forced fumble. We know that. He had the sack as well. Good comment here and question from John Sanders. I want to address this. I don't know what he means by the first part. What's the difference between a shotgun for the 1 and 2-point conversion, a shotgun for the 2-point conversion? I don't know what that means. Confused why they took the extra point off the board. If you're referring to the 1 or 2, what happened was the Bills kicked the extra point, but there was a penalty on the play.
Yeah.
So they have the option. Do you want to instead go for 2 from the 1-yard line? It's a half the distance. So you could say no. And I agree with that. I mean, you should be able to get 1 yard. They just weren't able to get 1 yard. Like, I think that was the right call, Eric, that anytime I've already kicked my extra point, but you're telling me I can move it closer and try for 2 now from the 1-yard line. I'm going to take that basically.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And it's funny, the analytics side of things in those type of situations are pretty straightforward. And it's not something I heavily get into, but this staff has a whole department with Dennis Locke and those guys that study these situations and when to go for 2, when to just kick the extra point and stuff like that. So I agree with what you said earlier. Some of the plays were kind of head scratchers and the execution were kind of head scratchers, but for the most part, I agreed with them going for the 2 in some of those situations. But we talked about Keon Coleman. I want to dive a little deeper into his play and get your thoughts on whether his late game surge, because he had 7 of his 8 receptions in that fourth quarter. He finished with 8 receptions, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. Was that late surge in that game a sign of things to come for the Bills in 2025?
I think so. I think what you saw was the Bills really trusting Keon Coleman in big moments. Fourth quarter, all right? 8 targets. And on top of that, a 2-point conversion target, which is 9, and a ball he caught deflected off Dawson Knox's hands, which is actually 10 plays he's involved in.
It's wild.
In the fourth quarter. Most receivers don't get 8 targets in a game. The guy got him in the fourth quarter when the chips were down, and he made catches, and he made plays, and he ran great routes. And I remember about a month and a half ago, I'm on with Bulldog in the afternoon, WGR. And Bulldog said, "What have you seen from Keon Coleman?" And I tell this story because I'm proud, because it's pretty cool. I said, I think the word I'd use is intentional. He's been so intentional about his route running. He's been so intentional at the top of the route. Everything he does is super intentional. And then right before the season, we're meeting with Joe Brady. "Hey, Joe, what do you think about Keon Coleman?" He goes, "I think he's been very intentional." And it just was super cool. So I said to Joe, "You made me look good. You used the same word I did." He kind of laughed. He goes, "I did it to make you look good." He didn't, though. He didn't even know I said it. But what he said was, "I like to use that word for guys who are really going about their business and doing it, and really understanding and going about the right way." And that's what he felt about Keon. And I think Keon, this could be a real nice season for him. It could be a breakout season. We've all heard it. We've heard the people talk. We've teammates talk about it, and all the stuff that coaches and GMs have said. And I just think that not only did they trust him and he made plays, but that will carry him and them further for them to do more of that.
I think a lot of fans saw the highlights from camp out at St. John Fisher. And I swear every other video that came out was Keon Coleman making a big play. Obviously, the coaching staff has made a concerted effort to let it be known publicly that they're impressed with the hard work he's put in and dedication he's put in, exactly what they wanted from him after last season. And you saw that streakiness. I always compare his game to a basketball player and getting hot. He's a streaky player. And I think we saw that in the fourth quarter. Played outside of structure a bunch, which is super important when you play with Josh Allen. And we talked about how when some of the plays were dead, you saw Josh extend the play and you saw him, look to Coleman in many instances. He played above the rim. That one play along the boundary when the corner was in cover 6 and he trapped the out route by Kincaid and Josh hit Keon Coleman above the rim. That was a play that they used to run between Cole Beasley in the slot and Gabe Davis out wide. They're bringing that back against cover 6. You saw Coleman play above the rim. And that play is that throw is something they've been working on, but it's also great when you're talking about that situation behind the corner and outside of the safety in that honey hole, because a lot of times quarterbacks want to lead them up the field, right? That could lead them right into Malachi Starks or Kyle Hamilton, but he throttled down. Keon Coleman throttled down, paced down, played above the rim. The throw was perfect. It was nice to see him make those plays that we are used to him making, but also do it in those big moments. That the one play where it's a cover 0 look, they're sending pressure and he runs that post across the face of the corner. That's something we talked about a few weeks ago. The Bills actually looked to Keon Coleman when he was healthy last year, and a lot of those high leverage situations. Again, the second highest target percentage on third downs last year at 15%. So it was nice to see everything kind of come together for him and him to get hot late in that game with Josh, because Josh needed it when we're talking those big chunk plays and swinging the field late in the game.
Does Josh get AFC Player of the Week?
I don't see how he doesn't, honestly. We talked about the numbers. How do you not give it to him, honestly?
Well, you could give it to Derrick Henry, but you don't give it, usually doesn't go to a losing player, right? I mean, the game he had pretty worthy, but Josh Allen, 71%. That's the crazy part too. He threw for all these yards, 394. He was over 71%, 71.7%. 2 touchdowns running, 2 touchdowns passing, obviously. If you look, I'm just looking at some of the other AFC guys. Let's see, Travis Etienne, 143 on the ground, but no touchdowns. Yeah, I think we're probably looking at that. Who is this? Marquise Hollywood Brown was the leading receiver in the AFC with 10 catches for 99 yards. I mean, that's not a ton right there. Keon Coleman even had more, 8 for 112. So
yeah,
there you go.
It's got to be Josh. It's got to be Josh. That's why he was our tapped-in player for this week. It was another fun episode. We got to get out of here. My son's got football here in about half an hour.
Good luck to him.
So, what do you got this week, Sal? What's the schedule looking like this week?
Okay, so stay with me at Sal Sports, because tomorrow I'll be back down at the stadium. It's the start of the Jets week. We'll hear from Sean McDermott, I think around 11:30 or so, 12 o'clock in that time period. Bills will be back on the practice field. We'll get another update on Tre'Davious White. McDermott did say yesterday he's improving. We'll see if he plays. We didn't even talk about Dorian Strong in this episode. We can definitely do that again a little bit later again, and what that looks like. And then, of course, throughout the week, all of your coverage at Sal Sports and WGR 550.
Awesome stuff, man. Look forward to all of that content and your work this week. On behalf of Turf to Tape, I'm Eric Turner. That's Sal Capaccio. We'll see you next week.